the results section. The results section, okay. You have to put a clear, in a clear way, what did you find in your study? Preferably, you have to put this in a way that responds to your objectives or your problem and research questions. So if your objective is one, you have to put in your result, I got to reach my objective this way. The findings were these, and these. Then, the word significant is often used in everyday language to stress something that is important or substantial, but in a scholarly article, it is probably better to use the word statistically significant if you want to report a difference proven by a statistical test. So significant is just an everyday language, everyday word, and statistically significant is when you get at the RStudio or at the SPSS software that 1 star or 2 stars at the tables that give the results of your tests, okay? The findings that are more important are the ones that you can affirm with 95% of confidence, okay? Okay. You have to use some tables and graphics to support the results of your section. Sometimes people get a little confused of the order of how to present the results. I prefer to put the table or graphics first, then I describe the main information in a common sense that was found in that graphic, and then at the end of the paragraph, I make a little discussion with some author that can be a foundation to explain that data. So instead of making a presentation of results first section and then another section with the discussion of results, I prefer doing both things at one section, one big section, and then graphic or table, common sense explanation, and then discussion with some author. Always the same order. So if you have 30 questions in your survey, you have to do this procedure, graphic, explanation, discussion, 30 times, okay? So begin a new paragraph for the results from the primary analysis. Always use the same order when presenting data. And okay, that's all. Always write the results section in the past tense because the research already done, so you can't write in the present, okay? Just if you are writing a qualification project, you have to write in the future or in the present for the findings that you see in the literature review. Next, discussion. The discussion section is separated here, but as I told in the last paper, I prefer doing the presentation of data and discussion in the same section. I think it's a more didactical way to do that. So The discussion section or the concluding remark section has these characteristics too. It can be visualized as an inverted funnel. So you start with each question. You start little with your questions. Then the questions are grouped inside main themes, and then after the themes get a big analysis, you are going to see what is the big data that big finding that you have to your paper, and which are the implication of this big finding, this one big finding that you have in your paper or dissertation or etc. to the main community at all. So if your study is about sustainability, so what are the implications of sustainability to Palmas and to Tocantins and to everyone that can be interested in this study? So you have in the introduction the funnel form, and in the discussion and concluding remarks you have the inverted funnel. So the whole paper can be visualized as an hourglass shape. Okay. Start thinking about the discussion even before collecting the first data. So before collecting data, when you are reading the text to construct your literature review, you have to think, okay, this concept is nice, it's good, but how I am going to collect the data to prove my point using this concept. So every time you are reading text, you have to think about the methods and procedures and results that are going to be in front of your work. So if a concept is very good, but it's not very researchable in the field, you are going to write a very good theoretical paper, but it's not going to get a good field research. Okay, so you have to while doing your literature review, try to make some way of operationalizing your concept. Start by presenting the main things by answering the research question in exactly the same way as you stated in the introduction section. Include a separate subsection about the strengths and weaknesses of the study. It's in the Brazilian papers, normally this part is in the concluding remarks. Okay. You have to compare the findings of your studies with other studies. Like when you present a table, you have to make an explanation and then compare or discuss with data from other authors. You have to say what are the strengths and limitations of your work, and what are the implications for the community in general. Okay. So that's all. So how you use tables and graphics and figures, etc. in our context in Brazil, you have a BNT. In foreign journals, you have APA or Chicago and another norms to publish papers. So in each norm, you have format to tables and graphics and etc. You have to see which is the norm of the site that you are going to publish, because even in Brazil there are different norms in the journals. So when you are going to publish, for example, in an AMPAD, you don't publish in a BNT norm. You publish in APA. So there are some events in Brazil and that they are not using a BNT. So you have to be careful to see which norms they are using. A good site to see all these norms together is the USP site. The USP site, they have the ABNT, the Chicago, and the APA norm all together with 3 different manuals about approaching all these norms. Mm-hmm. The only one I saw was an AMPAD, but I don't know if there are other encounters and congresses and events that are not using a BNT. So we have to be careful, because 3 years ago, when I was, no, 4 years ago, I was trying to publish to an AMPAD, and in the last minute, I saw that it was APA. So I went one night through to format the paper to an AMPAD. I didn't know that this could happen. Both tables and figures should have a clear relation with the text of the paper. Okay. They are saying that the tables and figures and graphics are inserted after the bibliography, the reference list. But in our area that is management and public administration, etc., it's not usual to do things that way. So we put the tables next to the information that it's belonging to that information. What you should do: make a deliberate choice early in the writing process on which data to present in tables and figures. Okay. Avoid repeating all the information from the tables in the texts. So you are just are going to say after the table or graphic some important thing that is remarkable in the paper. So if it's common sense to find to see something happen, and the graphic shows something that is opposite to the common sense, so you are going to say that in the first line of the paragraph. So things that are not important to be said about that graphic, you don't have to write. You have to remember that you have a little space, just 15 to 30 pages in one paper, so you have to use this space wisely. Okay. So this one is over too. The reference, usually when we are talking or writing about public policies, this part is a little difficult because of the legislation. So in that APA or ABNT or Chicago norms manual, you have to see carefully which is the right way to cite legislation inside the text and in the reference too. Because sometimes the paper is very rich in content, but because of these little things in ability, or your paper can be rejected. Okay. Science moves forward by building on the research work of others, so it's important to appropriately cite previous work to acknowledge your sources, and etc. So every time you cite you use other people's research, you have to cite this work, because if not, this is plagiarism. Okay. Some informations that are not common sense sometimes appear in many papers, many books simultaneously. So instead of citing just one work, you can cite several works that contain the same information, because this provides more weight to your foundation of information. Okay. The author is saying that it's important to use reference management software. I don't think the software is very important, but if you know how to use the cite tool of Google Scholar Google, you are good. You don't have to worry about the format of the references. When you are going to write your reference, sometimes people does not give the volume and number of the paper or the journal, just give the DOI number. So in some norms, you can make the citation of the reference just using DOI. But in ABNT, I see that you have to use the format volume, number, page, year in all papers. Okay. So if they only provide the DOI, you have to check in another places which is the volume number, volume and number of the paper you are using. Okay. In the references, you only can use things that are cited inside the text. So if you read a text, you loved the text, but you didn't cite the text in any place of the text, you can't put that paper or book in your references. Okay. Sometimes I see a very big list of papers and etc. in the reference, but when I check the references and the work cited inside the text, the list is not correspondent. So you have to be very careful in this way. It's almost over. The authorship question. Okay. To decide if one person enters as an author or not, there are some criteria that is from ICMJE, International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, that are good to see if a person is fit to be be referenced as an author of your article or not. So, an author should have contributed substantially to the conception and design, acquisition of data, or analysis and interpretation of data. The author has to have contributed to writing the paper or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and given final approval of the version to be published. So there is in some organizations a practice of putting people as the last author without this person having contributed to the research. I don't know, but this is not in compliance with this kind of directives, okay? Okay. So the lead author is the one who is carrying the piano of that paper, and the last author is normally is the supervisor, who is just revising and supervising the work. Okay. Okay. The choice of the journal. So if you submit your paper to a higher factor journal, you are going to pass through a process that only lets in 10% of all the papers that are submitted. If you choose to publish in a lower impact journal, sometimes they let pass 80% of all the papers they receive. So you have to choose between a high probability of being published and the necessity of the need of publishing inside a short time. So these journals that are more prestigious, they usually have a longer period of selection of these papers. So you have to choose which one is more important for you at that time, okay? You can submit to a journal that has a printed version or not. Sometimes you see in the submission form that if you pay a little more to that journal, the paper is open access. If you pay less, the lower fee, your paper is not open access, but you don't have to pay a full fee to make a full access, free access to everybody paper. There are some predatory journals too that if you pay $5,000, your paper is going to be published for sure, whether it has quality or not. I don't recommend submitting to these journals, okay? Think about a target journal before starting to write. Balance the desire to publish in high impact factor journals with your preferred time to publication. There are another journals that are very high in impact too, but they can have a fee to publish that is a few $1,000s worth. So sometimes it's better to publish in a place that it's not so visible, but it's more inside your budget. Sometimes these few $1,000s can be a little a factor to complicate your submission. Discuss relevant target journals, prioritize them, and rank a final list of 3 or 5 journals. Okay. Sometimes you have some journals that are more theoretical. Some journals are more focused on field research. Some journals are more focused on public policies or public administration. Each journal has a different focus, and you have to see if that focus is aligned with the way that you wrote your paper. Submitting a paper. Okay. Sometimes you have to write a cover letter. Sometimes you have to write a term giving rights to the journal to republish your paper if it is needed. Sometimes you have to give away the rights of your paper. I don't recommend doing that. So you wrote the paper, but the journal gets the right to publish as it needs. So before submitting your paper, it's good to have your text proof read by a professor or a friend who is good in writing and is aware of the language that is used in the academic papers. Sometimes when you give your paper to be read by someone from the family, for example, they say that the language is too difficult or they did not understand anything, but it's not to your family to understand. Who has to understand is someone from the area that is going to read that paper. Okay. Use the cover letter as an opportunity to sell your paper. That letter that presents you to the people of the journal. So when you finish your submission, there is a page that proves that you sent the paper to the journal. It's always good to print that page, that internet page, in a PDF version and store it, because sometimes you have to prove in some selection process or anything that you submitted that paper. Sometimes you get points with submitting paper. Sometimes you don't. It's the criteria is on the. It's reading in the selection process. I don't know which criteria is going to be used. Sometimes you get an email saying that your paper was approved, but it's not yet published or printed. This email can prove too that the paper is going to be published. Okay. Oi. No, no. you have, if you are going to do something like this, you have to make the papers different enough to be published in different sites. Because if the same paper appears in 3 different journals, you are going to be banned from that journal. Okay. It's not advisable. Okay. And after submitting some few papers, you can start tracking the time of response of each journal, and you can start sending for publishing to journals that answer faster than the others. Okay, some journals take 2 years to respond, and the answer is no. So you end up with a paper that is sold, and you have to rewrite it with newer books and newer papers. And this kind of journal gives you more work to do. If you get a faster response, you can just rewrite and correct things and submit to the same journal or to other journal without having to work that much. So this kind is responding to reviewers. A reviewer is a person that is doing voluntary work. So I advise you to be very patient with this person, because this person is receiving nothing to evaluate your work. So and sometimes we read very bad things at the evaluation process. So be patient. So you can receive three types of results: acceptance, rejection, or you have to revise your paper. If you have to revise your paper, usually there are some revisions in concepts that some author is better than the other. Sometimes the revision is of formatting, or sometimes the revision is about the language that you used. Okay. So it's normal to have delays in the reports, because the work is volunteer. When you receive a reject after review, normally you pick the paper, work a little harder in that paper, and submit to another journal, because if you submit to the same journal, the desk review is going to be a little pissed off with you, and you can be rejected with a good paper. So usually, if you are rejected in one journal, submit to another journal. Okay. In the Brazilian journals, normally we don't get to see what the authors think about your comments. But some journals, like these foreign ones, the authors can respond to the process of blind review. Okay.